All right. Well, hey, thank you for coming, everyone. I know some of you have traveled a long distance and some a short distance, but I do want to say hello and welcome. Again, my name is Jay Nakashima. I'm the Executive Director of eHealth Exchange. And it's my honor to kick off this first in-person meeting we've had since the pandemic began. So hopefully everyone goes home and feels safe and healthy next week, especially before the holidays. My memory tells me that Hanukkah starts today, tomorrow, soon, Sunday.
Sunday, the 18th.
Yes. And then, of course, there are Christmas and other holidays and non-holidays for those of us who are not religious. Let's see, clicker, here we go. Now, eHealth Exchange has added 22 participants this year. And of course, a participant might be a large health system, it might be a federal agency, it might be an HIE, it might even be a smaller 200-bed community hospital. But at any rate, we've added 22 of those new participants this year. And if any of those are here, you are especially welcome, and we are thrilled to have you here. All right, so in terms of agenda, we have a lot to cover today. Before I forget, I might start at the back end. So we're going to adjourn our topics at 3:30, but we will have a networking session from 3:30 to 5 in the atrium, I believe, and that is hosted by InterSystems. So thank you, InterSystems. And of course, that's where a lot of business gets done, and you can ask people the right questions and have a little bit of time to process the answers and ask follow-ups. If we start more towards the beginning of the day, Matt Eisenberg here, our chair for the coordinating committee, is going to run us through some of his opening remarks. We are also going to better understand the eHealth Exchange, what we've accomplished, where we're headed. Steve Gravely and I are going to talk about TEFCA. Number one, a reminder what TEFCA is for those of you who may not have been here for the past 2 days, as well as kind of a look at how an eHealth Exchange QHIN, Qualified Health Information Network, might appear should it be designated by the recognized coordinating entity. We're going to hear from some of our federal partners where they are headed, what their big challenges are, which is often kind of a favorite part of the day. And then we're going to have Mickey Tripathi join us to tell us more about TEFCA and other priorities for ONC. So be sure not to miss that at 12:15. We have a participant who's going to be highlighting why their organization is signing up to exchange in the TEFCA world. And then we have the FDA is going to highlight for us how they are exchanging via FHIR bidirectionally, and they exclusively exchange via FHIR. So, as we look at the progress made so far and the path ahead, I'm hoping that everyone today is inspired. I hope everyone's motivated and informed. Don't forget there's an Ask the Expert booth right outside the door that should be open all day if you have any detailed questions about eHealth Exchange. And we would love to have you talk about getting more value out of the network. So if you want to go to the Ask the Expert booth and ask what more you could be doing with eHealth Exchange, we'd love to answer those questions. So without further ado, we have Matt Eisenberg, our gracious chair of the coordinating committee.
Oh, let's see if I can fire this up. So welcome. As those who know me, when I often talk, I have spilkies, which is Yiddish for ants in your pants, so I'll wander a little bit. Thanks, Jay. Really a pleasure. I'm Matt Eisenberg. I have really the distinct honor, privilege, and joy of serving as the chair of the coordinating committee, and we'll talk about that. On behalf of the entire coordinating committee, which is your representatives and our federal exchange partners represented, Bill Howard, our board chair, and the Board of Governors, Jay, the entire eHealth Exchange staff, I am really delighted to have you here. It's great to see you in 3D. I've been saying that for several days. And it's really a pleasure. It's been a long, long time coming. For those who've been here for 3 days, working with Care Equality and the Sequoia Project and now the eHealth Exchange, our brother and sister organizations, I've learned a ton. The one thing I still can't figure out, we talked about that this morning with the coordinating committee, is we don't call it Care Equality KK, so why is it TEFCA? Why isn't it just the TEF? I'll leave that for you guys to figure it out. And if you missed it yesterday, my favorite joke of the week was that if you're dating for a QHIN, you can use QHinder, a new application. So to kick us off, and you'll hear about it all day long, the state of the network is amazing. And the work that we've been doing is incredible, and the growth has been phenomenal. And we're delighted. Jay's going to provide some additional data beyond what I'm going to go over to corroborate that. But if you'll indulge me for just 2.5 hours, we're going to talk a little bit about the past of the coordinating committee and the network, what we've been doing over the last year, the present, and the future. And then I'll send you home with 3 to-dos if you're interested in participating. So let's see if I can figure this one out. Okay, so we're going to start with the past and a quote from Winston Churchill, paraphrasing, I can never say it. Those who fail to learn history are condemned to repeat it. So we started as the NHIN, or the NWHIN, little w, Nationwide Health Information Network. And the Nationwide Health Information Network started as a pilot somewhere around 2007, 2000. Is that right, Steve? I'm looking at Steve. We'll get to Steve in a minute. And it was an ONC-sponsored pilot. And by the way, I've had in my computer for a year a draft article. There's an ulterior motive here. I've had this draft article called "The Very First QHIN." And I think, and there's some references that I'll share as part of the slides, and you guys can go back and look at it. But I'd really like to get a definitive history, because I think it's actually really quite fascinating. And I think I was thinking about this, that if medicine didn't work out, I should have become a historian. So we started as the Nationwide Health Information Network, ONC-sponsored, and it was part also of with a virtual lifetime electronic health record, we'll talk about it, or VELR. And I'll show you some slides for that go back from my deck I found from 2011 and where I started in this journey. And it really was, initially, VELR was to solve a big, hairy federal problem. And big, hairy federal problems needed to be solved. And if you were an active duty soldier and getting health care through the DoD, and you became a veteran, those systems couldn't talk to one another. And 70% of those veterans and active duty soldiers were being seen in the public sector, and they couldn't see that information either. So that was the original, that was the intent of VELR, the Virtual Lifetime Electronic Health Record. Back in 2011, when it was still under the ONC guidance, the eHealth Exchange had 23 early participants. And I think, Paul, we learned today, was one of those early participants at OCHIN back to 2012. Now, in 2012, ONC passed it off to, I don't know what we're called, the eHealth Exchange Healthy Way, which then eventually became the Sequoia Project. And our network, as you know, is governed by the DIRSA, and we can give thanks for that to the legal Thomas Jefferson in the back, Steve Gravely. So the original pilot for VELR started in December of 2009. Does anybody know who was the first connections? It was you. It was KP San Diego with the VA in December of 2009. And in January of 2010, DoD joined. And then here's the list, because I pulled it off one of the articles. If you're on this list, please stand. Kaiser Permanente, San Diego, but Kaiser Permanente, Med Virginia. Let's see if I can read it. Inland Northwest Health System. Indiana Health Exchange. John, stand up. Healthy Link Buffalo. Community Health Information Collaborative Minneapolis. You may be by a different name now. North Carolina Healthcare Information and Communications Alliance. South Carolina Health Information Exchange. Utah Health Information Network. Multicare Health System, which is where I worked, and I started with this work back in 2008, 2009. San Diego Beacon Community and the Department of Defense VA. Please stand up and let's give these guys a round of applause. Thanks. So our legal, Thomas Jefferson, helped write the DRSA. I found somewhere the original DRSA work group, and I'll find that and I'll send it to Steve. For those of you who have read the DRSA, we all now suffer from a minor chronic condition I call DRSitis. I've said this before. It's an ongoing obligation to honor and fulfill the duty to respond and the data use and reciprocal services agreement. It's pretty amazing. The history is all listed there. There's a couple of articles that have been published. I encourage folks to go back and read it. And this was from 2011 when I participated in Multicare in Wheeler. There's the signing of the original executive order. And that's the origin story. This is the inaugural coordinating committee. First, Jay found it. I don't know where you found it, Jay. These were the minutes of the original 2012 coordinating committee. The chair at the time was Michael Matthews. It was followed by Kit Winter, and then Margaret Donahue, and then John Kansky. I used to call it the Donahue-Kansky chair, but it really started with Michael Matthews. And I am delighted to follow those incredible folks. It's been really quite a wonderful journey. So that's a little bit about the past. But what have we been doing this last year in the coordinating committee? If you must look back, do so forgivingly. If you must look forward, do so prayerfully. However, the wisest thing you can do is to be present in the present. So if you're part of the coordinating committee, please stand up. We've got me, Derek Plansky, Pam Matthews, Jamie Bland, John Kansky, Patty Quartus, Paul Matthews, Cindy Pan from the VA, Lance Scott couldn't make it from DOD, Mitch Thornburg, Indian Health Service, Melissa Ayers from Social Security, I know Melissa's here, Hussein is not here, our newest federal partner, the FDA, Eric Liederman, and Pat Russell, who keeps us all in line. The red, Derek, Jamie, and Eric are our newest members, voted in by you guys this year. Patty and Pam are our representatives from the coordinating committee to the board, and that's the group. Please join me in congratulating these guys. Thank you. I learned a ton. The meetings are fun. We really we cover a lot of territory. So I think you know the basics, and Jay will cover a lot of this, but we cover the whole country. We have the 5 federal agencies now, including the FDA, so VA, DOD, Indian Health Service, SSA, 61 state and regional health information exchanges, health information organizations. 25 of our participants are connected to Care Equality through us, and we now are up to 327 participants. I think there's a slide somewhere with like 1 billion served. He'll go over the transaction data. So 327 participants, and we're delighted to have as many of you here as possible. So what have we been doing? So you'll hear about it today. What's it going to take to be a QHIN? And a big shout out to Bill Howard and the group that helped us. We really looked at this in great detail, reading through the documentation. What were the technical requirements? What were the policy requirements? And if we wanted to be a QHIN, or as I've said many, many times, there ain't no QHIN like an EHEX QHIN, what is it going to take? So we really, really covered that in great detail. Next, everybody is going onto the hub. We're truly now a network. The data is there in the hub, and you can actually see the transaction information. Before, you had a directory, you had an agreement, the DRSA, which we love, thank you, Steve, and you got a certificate. But there was really, we weren't covering any of the traffic. Now we are a true network, we're on the hub. Please see Operating Policy and Procedure 16, because we want everybody on the hub. We don't want people to have point-to-points anymore. It's inefficient, it's expensive, and it really doesn't give you the information that you need to sort of monitor how you're doing. We've completed an incredible amount of content testing. You heard from Dee Dee Davis, Madam Content, as I like to call her, about our program. I thank all of you for participating in this program, testing, because if we test If we test to see that we're actually sharing information that is usable, like you heard yesterday, the quality of the exchange is much, much better for all of us participants on the network. Bear with us, but we've actually figured this out finally. Our PKI X.509 certificate distribution process has been solved. It's easy, it's simple. I know that's not true, but anyway, we've gotten through that, which was great. Information blocking. We're an actor. I'm an actor. Now I'm an actor as an HIE, and we need to understand what that is. We had to do our training. We continue to do our training, and we really keep following the information blocking regulations. Addressing duty to respond. This has been important, and it's a requirement under the DRSA, and we take it seriously. We've had some issues just working with some of our participants in terms of their state regulations or restrictions or their interpretations thereof. We've had a lot of discussion recently, and I'm sure you have in your organizations, about what the world of health information exchange is like in the post-Dobbs v. Jackson era. More and more on that to come. And then finally, there's just usual feeding and growing. We have elections. Thank you for participating. We talk about what's next. We've welcomed the FDA as a federal partner, and we're delighted to have them. And we'll talk a little bit about what's next. So for those who want to learn more, talk to Dee Dee. We talked about this from a quality perspective with Carrier Quality and the SCORE project yesterday, but 96% of you have submitted documents, passed testing. We're learning a ton about this. This is fantastic. This drives the quality of the information that's exchanged by all participants on the network. So I think Stephen Lane, you did the Gretzky quote yesterday. So I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been, the great Gretzky. So what are we thinking about now? There are 3 areas that we're really focused on. And the first one, of course, is TEFCA and becoming a QHIN, and you'll hear a ton about that today. And if we're going to be part of this new single on-ramp to interoperability, what is that going to mean for us, our participants, and our organization? FHIR. Learn more about the FHIR roadmap. That's one of my take-home messages. And in particular, the FDA has done this incredible work about querying for adverse events and being able to get data back from all of those participants who'd like to do that via FHIR. And Cedars-Sinai is live with the FDA. We're looking for others, and that's one of my take-home messages. Consider doing that. And lastly, we're talking a lot in our provider health system and federally and nationally, I suspect you are, about social determinants or social drivers of health. How do we share that? How do we collect that data? How do we make sure that that data is collected in some standard fashion? And how do we share that data effectively? So 3 take-home messages for you. One, if you're not registered for our monthly participant meetings, just do it or just download the deck. It's great. It's a great way to stay informed. It's fantastic. 2, if you don't have access to your hub dashboard, just get it. It's fantastic. It's really a way to monitor your own traffic, do troubleshooting. You get a whole sense of how your organization is working. We use it at Stanford. You can actually administer other folks to get access. It's really an incredibly helpful tool, and I encourage all of you to do that. And third, learn more about FHIR, learn more about what the FDA is doing, consider participating in that, and that would be great. So that's it for me. We're delighted to be here. I'm going to turn it back over to Jay. Thank you, and again, welcome, and I'll be here all day. Really is a treat.